Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
I am back. I did not die. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're not divorced.
We're not divorced. I didn't take the kids for the weekend, but had some stuff going on yesterday. We're going to talk about this article Geeky found. Pretty interesting stuff. So the head writer of X-Men 97, the sequel, reboot, reimagining, whatever, to the original X-Men 1990s series, is coming out and saying that if you want to get a job working on this stuff, you got to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, basically, like, you have the writer's room staffed with people who understand and respect the source material. And they actually say, we're going to talk about it in a bit, but the reason they're doing this is because when they worked on The Witcher, there were a lot of people in the writer's room that actively hated the game and the books, which led to what we got in the show.
Yeah, this should not surprise anyone who's been watching, pretty much every major geek franchise, whether it's Star Wars or Star Trek or, video games or whatever. There is clear hatred, disdain for the source material from a lot of the people that are working on these properties. And this is good to hear because I originally was excited about X-Men 97, and then I was apprehensive because it seemed like the people working on it were getting kind of political, but now we've got the writer coming out and saying, no, you have to respect the source material if you want to work on this show. And I think this needs to be a mandate going forward for every company working with legacy IP, that they need to respect the source material. No fake fans, no people weaseling in with ill intention.
Well, not just that, they have people that come in and they aren't fans of the show or the series or whatever, and they come in and they're like, okay, well, I'm just gonna read this and make this my OC. And it's like, there's a difference. You can add to the legacy, but you need to understand where the legacy is coming from and what it is before you make changes.
And there are a lot of people that just have absolute disdain for the franchises, and they gloat about it. They'll go out to social media and they'll gloat about, oh, we're in your Doctor Who, messing it up. We're in Star Wars, messing it up.
I did an article on this, and I said they go out and actively antagonize fans after the fact. Looking at you, Ryan Johnson. So, is this Disney even on some level being like, yeah, what we're doing right now isn't working? We'll talk about this. I doubt it.
We'll talk about it because I'm hearing some other stuff too, at least on the MCU side, that Kevin Feige is not real happy with what's been going down with the She-Hulk people and all of that. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 277,000 subs. Woo! Thank you for the support. We do talk about animation. We talk a lot about Disney, having worked in and around the company for a number of years. We talk about comics, having made comics. And I'm a huge fan of the X-Men from the 80s and 90s. And I got to tell you.
Well, you kept joking that they should do that about X-Men bringing back the 90s outfits and stuff.
Yeah, I am not a fan of current year X-Men. Like, here's Bishop from the 90s. He was this buff badass.
Oh, I'm afraid.
Gun-toting mofo, and now he's like a gay pirate.
For real?
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what he looked like. That's more
too terrible.
Well, this is classic Bishop, right? We got Gambit.
Yeah, I knew Gambit.
Iconic X-Men character. This is what he looked like in the 90s.
Yes.
Also looks like a gay pirate.
X marks the spot.
I just can't. I have zero interest in the X-Men comics. They're not selling as well as they used to.
For purple nurple. I'm sorry.
It's all become Tumblr fan fiction. The X-Men, it's hot trash. They're on Krakoa. They've been on Krakoa for years. I don't know what the
X-Men fans don't want to watch Prom.
They don't want to watch Prom.
Sorry.
Well, no.
Mind blown.
So what concerned me about X-Men 97, because they were doing this with the comics, you mentioned bringing the old style back, is I was worried they were going to pursue the Krakoa storyline, which has been going on for way too damn long, and it's confusing as hell and boring as hell. And, they were doing that with the comics. They're like, oh, we're bringing the classic X-Men back. It's a sequel to the animated series, but we're gonna make it take place on Krakoa, like the current storyline that nobody likes. But I was kind of concerned too, because, it looked like they had a lot of, political hot takes here, current year. Of course, we had the voice actress of Jubilee noping out because she's not actually Asian. so she can't play the character anymore. That's probably
yeah, but then demanding that they have to hire an Asian person to play the character.
Right. So I mean, look, there were a lot of red flags. There still are some red flags, but this is actually encouraging and
Refreshing.
It's refreshing to have someone come out and say, hey, if you're not actually a fan of this shit, go find another job. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We got some other videos we're doing today that again seems to indicate that this pendulum is swinging.
Now, I do want to point out though, they only have control in the writer's room. They can't control who's cast. They can't control, how they portray them in character form. But they are apparently able to control who works on the writing. So that's important to know. So this is that Bo DeMaio.
Okay.
And apparently they did a Instagram stories where they were answering questions, and they were talking about this. And if you go down, they talk about here's some of the questions. They said, can you discuss how the production team came about? Like, how were they recruited for X-Men 97? And he says, for sure. In fall of 2020, Marvel's head of streaming asked me to develop a take to revive the show. From there, I pitched it out. We hired. My LP was the first hire, and he brought along all the amazing talent that followed. My general rule was you had to be a fan. No questions. I've been on a show, namely Witcher, where some of the writers were not or actively disliked the books and games, even actively mocking the source material. It's a recipe for disaster and bad morale.
Wow.
Fandom is a litmus test. Check egos and make all the long nights worth it. You have to respect the work before you're allowed to add to its legacy.
Okay. We need more of this. We need every person that is in charge of adding to legacy IP needs to understand you cannot destroy, mock, belittle what came before. You can add to it. You can, within the boundaries of the universe that have been pre-established, add to it, but realize if you're going to change it so it's unrecognizable, you absolutely positively are going to get fan backlash. You're going to lose money. At that point, like, why are you even working on Star Trek if your Star Trek show has nothing to do with Star Trek?
Well, it reminds me of like She-Ra, because it was basically just the characters. It's She-Ra paint on a completely different show. There's named characters after these characters.
Yeah, and the problem with this is that they go out and not only do they actively hate the original version of the show that they're working on, but they'll go out and they'll antagonize the fan base. And then the whole purpose of having legacy IP is that you are hoping that the fan base comes along for the ride, the classic fans, and you pick up some new fans. But when you immediately push all the old fans away,
well, that's what we're seeing. What we saw with Star Wars, and then like Rian Johnson even was out there, causing shit. And then we saw it with even a She-Hulk right now. You have all these people involved with the show out there antagonizing fans, and it's like that's not gonna help. And then this whole narrative that because she's a woman and you don't like She-Hulk because she's a woman, is like people loved She-Hulk for years before you guys messed her up or touched her. Where did they touch you?
Yeah. So anyway, he's going to be in charge of the show for the foreseeable future. They're going to give us hopefully classic Rogue. There's been talk. There has been talk about Kiki Palmer being Rogue, which means they're going to race swap Rogue again in the movies.
Of course they are. It's always characters with a certain haircut type that ends up being swapped.
Usually. So I think what gets me about this, though, is like, this is awesome that he's in charge of an animated series, but why can't we have people that care this much about Marvel characters and the legacy on the comics, on this freaking source material and in the MCU? Because this is great. I mean, a lot of people are going to tune in for this if it is, classic X-Men. And the weird thing is wouldn't it be ironic if this version of X-Men wound up being truer to classic X-Men than the comic books, than the MCU version, which is supposedly going to be called the Mutants or some shit. I don't know.
I want to also add at the end, though, someone asked, are you worried about fan reactions to X-Men 97? And he's like, I care, but I'm not worried. So he cares what the fans think. He said these people need to check their ego. And I hear this all the time, we got to reinvent things. We got to for modern audiences. You cannot take a legacy franchise that's been around for decades because it has an established fan base. You can totally update. You could totally make some changes within reason. You can add characters. You can add diversity. That's not the problem. The problem is when you fundamentally change everything about it and say that you know, if you don't like it, you're a horrible person. We don't want you anymore. Well, you kind of need those people because there's a lot more of them than there are of the new fans that you were going after.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a lot of the merchandise. A lot of the merchandise is 80s, 90s, X-Men. I mean, if Disney were smart, and we know they're not, God, we know they're not. But if they were smart, the MCU version of the X-Men would be based on the classic 90s team.
Well, you've been joking that you wanted the old uniforms back and everything. And then they announced they were rebooting this. And at first you're kind of like, yay. And then you're like, but they're going to ruin it. And now you're like cautiously optimistic, a little more so. I'm
a little more optimistic now that we have a guy that's in charge, or at least you know, the head writer saying that you have to respect, you know, the source material. And again, I think this needs to be across the board with any classic IP. I know if we were in charge and we had acquired the rights to a classic IP that had a large pre-existing fan base with certain expectations, we'd be like, you know, we have to make sure that we at least meet or exceed those expectations, or at least not completely destroy this thing.
That's their job.
It's like buying a house. You pay a lot of money for a beautiful mansion and then you destroy it. Why did you do that? Why didn't you just
you bring people in to fix up the house that didn't have any experience, don't know how to do any of this stuff, and let them in and they destroy the house.
Yeah.
And then when the people that live in the house are like, but I can't use this. Well, that's because you're a bigot.
Yeah, at that point you just build a new house or whatever, and that's kind of the case with, you know, these franchises. I think they're slowly learning, and I think the recession is going to push these studios into a position where they're going to have to learn. I mean, time and time again. I can't think of a single. No, that's not entirely true. One example I can think of where they actually did change up everything was Battlestar Galactica, but that was a long time ago, and I'm going to be honest, and this is no disrespect to Battlestar Galactica fans, but Battlestar Galactica wasn't on the level of Star Wars or Star Trek.
Yeah.
You know, so it had fans, but not like...
I watched it when I was a kid with my dad.
Yeah, I watched it, you know, but, you know...
I was terrified of Cylons as a child.
The robot bear wasn't going to fly in the new version of it. So in some cases, you know, but then, again, the expectation was set. This is a reboot, a reimagining, not like, oh, we're going to do a sequel to it and we're going to destroy all the characters that what I was waiting for was like, okay, we're going to do X-Men 97, and then it's going to be a bait and switch, and we're going to bring in the current versions of the characters or all these new characters or whatever.
Well, when it's called X-Men 97,
yeah,
you kind of have to actually make it based on the X-Men from the 90s, you know? It's kind of how it works, you know?
Yeah, so hopefully it goes okay. We'll see, but yeah, it's kind of funny that he brought up The Witcher. He's basically like, he's admitting, and we saw it in season 2. We could see it in season 2. Season 1 wasn't that bad.
But a lot of people were mad because a lot of changes were made.
There were a lot of changes.
I'm not familiar, so I wouldn't have noticed those as fast as everybody else. And to be fair, I wasn't really watching it for the story so much. I mean, yeah, I was, but
watching it for the cavil. But season 2 especially kind of went off the rails. They kind of went down their own path with it, and it's clear. I mean, you know, to have somebody come out and verbalize, especially somebody working for Disney, to come out and verbalize that, like, there are people working on these franchises that have large existing audiences that absolutely fucking hate them.
Well, and the people they're hiring hate the games, hate the source material, hate the books, in this case of The Witcher, or anything that you're seeing lately. They don't know the franchise, but they're going to come in and reinvent it. You can't, like in art, we always were told you have to learn the rules before you can break the rules type thing. And, you know, it's like that. With this, you have to know where you're coming from and understand it to be able to add to it or change it, but make it still feel like what it's supposed to feel like. It's not your OC. It's X-Men that you're writing that you want to add to, but it's not like your show that you want to add to. You have to remember where it came from and the fans that are fans there for a reason.
Yeah, and that's the only reason that anybody's tuning in, to be honest, that they're willing to give your stuff a chance. And we've seen people admit it on Twitter. There was somebody out there, you know, like, why are these companies taking existing characters and changing them? Well, no, it came up during the Harley Quinn. Now everybody wants to make Harley Quinn trans or whatever on Twitter.
Oh God, that's
and which makes no sense for so many reasons. But they're like, you know, why don't you just introduce a new trans character? And they said, because that character is not popular. That new character won't be popular. I'm like,
so you're admitting you're just trying to take popular characters,
yes,
and then change them.
But
then they're not going to be popular anymore.
I mean, X-Men is a prime example of this. There are so many instances. Right now, basically, the X-Men is, as I understand it, I haven't picked up an issue of X-Men in like 3 years because it all looks boring as hell.
Why do we need this the back of his hip huggers?
Because his ass. We need to see Gambit's ass. So, I mean, it's pretty bad when you had Patrick Zurcher was out there, and this guy's like, been against Comicsgate and people that have been calling out the crap going on in comics right now. And he's even like, why are these traditionally masculine hero characters that have been popular for years, why are we making them all femme all of a sudden? What is going on here? And it's like, no, it's basically people that don't have a love for the franchise are coming in, they're looking at the characters, they're like, well, it's too much work to read 30, 40, 50 years of history on this character, or even go out to the fan wiki and learn the basics about this character. So I'm just going to recreate this character in my own image.
It's a reboot.
It's a reboot. It's a reimagining.
But if you don't like my version, it's because I'm personally offended, but I'm just going to say it's because you hate insert stereotype here, or insert type group of people here.
I mean, Iceman, perfect example. Iceman exclusively dated women the entire time he's been around. And all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, he's gay.
Yeah, but you know what? A lot of people that are gay didn't like that either. A lot of people that's what makes me mad. Is like a lot of people that they're saying they represent don't like the changes either because they feel like it's cheap and it's like, a hand-me-down, and they also like the character as they were. And I'm like, but why are you making them that way for why? And I didn't want you to change a character I love and just for that reason.
Yeah, but that's what they're doing, and that's because that's what they know. And again, we have a lot of people that are coming into the entertainment industry, coming in, getting hired off of freaking Tumblr or off of social media, or they're recent college grads, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to really learn the history. It's probably all white and problematic. It's all problematic. So we're just gonna start over. We're gonna do things our way. Everything's gonna be our way now. You man babies.
And then when it doesn't work, and it's because it's a failure because you didn't resonate with the core audience. That's because they're all bigots.
We've seen this rinse and repeat so many times. I'm hearing rumors. Again, these are rumors. I've seen some people do videos on them. That Kevin Feige is not real happy with how the She-Hulk writers handled the situation, because my understanding is he's like, you damaged the brand. Not only did you put the show out the way it was, listen to you guys, almost fired Jessica Gao because she was being bossy as hell, but he was probably afraid to fire her.
She said joking that she was bullying him.
I don't think it was a joke. I think she absolutely was bullying.
I think it probably was. I'm going to quit. And it's probably, it would have been, you hate women. You hate non-white women. Yeah,
you fired the female Asian writer off of She-Hulk. How dare you? How very dare you?
Get in my way, or I'm going to go start a shitstorm in the media. Yeah, which I'm going to do either way, because she's still out there doing it, even though she got her own way.
This happened with CB Cebulski at Marvel too. CB Cebulski, who I think is very qualified to be the editor of Marvel, but he doesn't have the cojones to stand up to these people. Almost immediately, he gets into Marvel, takes over for Axel Alonso, and he's got people calling him out for using a Japanese-sounding pen name when he was doing manga-style comics in Japan for Marvel. And they're like, it's cultural appropriation. So then he basically got bullied into giving this an Asian woman, a job. And he's just been completely ineffective. And I think these editors are afraid to tell people no.
What's funny to me is they get yelled about cultural appropriation about a lot of things. So that if you actually ask people from the culture, they aren't mad about it, or they don't find it offensive, or they find it as complimentary because it means you care about their culture. And these white Karens are like, it's cultural appropriation.
Yeah, so I don't know, guys. I mean, I think it's a good sign. This is, of course, just one person saying, you have to be a fan of this shit before you get a chance to work on it. We need a lot more people doing it. We need every legacy IP needs to have somebody like this in charge, just making sure.
If it's your own thing, you can do what you want.
You can do what you want.
But if it's a legacy, you have to. You get hired by someone to write something. You were always expected to write that character as that character. It wasn't, I'm going to change it and make it my OC, and that's how I'm going to write it from now on. That's been a recent development. Before, you had to be talented enough to be able to make the character sound like the character. Yeah. So when you build your own platform and you don't just come in and commandeer somebody else's platform, you can do with these characters whatever you want. That's right. But you got to earn it first. All right. We're going to wrap this up. Yep. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later. Bye.